if they can drops to 923.7. No evidence of illegal deductions from students' loan by tertiary institutions. That's coming from the federal government. I think it's a response to the NEL fund, the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, the saga, the ICPC unraveling that and all that. I think that's in response to that. Gateway Games, Ogun ready to host Nigeria, says Abiodun, as festival gets underway. And quickly, that's what we'll take on the Matrix newspaper this morning. It's time to move on to the Daily Independent newspaper. Quickly, the Daily Independent has as its lead story here, reps move to make voting compulsory for Nigerians. Reps move to make voting compulsory for Nigerians to probe technical glitch behind 2025 UTME. Reps move to make voting compulsory for Nigerians. I don't think that will work, because it's within my right to decide not to vote. Morally, it's a civic duty, but it's within my right. But I'll see how that plays out, and what will be the punitive measure. How would you even check that everyone didn't vote? What happens there? You come, you knock on doors and you ensure that you vote, or is there going to also be some stamp on your voter's card when you do a vote? I don't know how that's going to play out, but our national representatives, I guess they represent you and I, so I should expect that this is coming out of all of us. I mean, we all must have pushed or petitioned that we should make voting compulsory. I can understand where they say they'll probe technical glitch rather behind the UTME 2025 that just happened. Inflation eases to 23.71% in April. That's we took that story earlier from the National Bureau of Statistics. Pope Leo invites Tinubu to attend his inauguration on Sunday. Pope Leo this 19th invites Tinubu to attend his inauguration. Aeronautics managers, according to the story here, kicks against 50% deductions from aviation agencies. Aeronautics managers kick against 50% deductions from aviation agencies. That's sad. 50% deductions from aviation agencies. Dangote Rabiu frees cement price for contractors of Renewed Hope project. That's interesting. Tinubu okays forest guards to flush out terrorist criminals as Boko Haram reruns 3 LGAs in Borno State. Boko Haram reruns 3 local governments in Borno State. Tinubu okays forest guards to flush out terrorist criminals. I hope they are properly equipped and trained, because It's unfortunate that when it comes to the fight against terrorism, we are recording so much attack on military formations, which is very, very concerning when we look at the scheme of things. If military formations are being attacked and soldiers killed in the military formations, it also means that we should enhance whatever it is we're doing to tackle criminality and terrorism. But it's a good thing most of our forests are left ungoverned and left porous, and so criminals and terrorists have been recorded. To provide allocation for construction of CBT centers in 774 local governments in 2026. That is on the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning. Odua Investment Company posts 82 billion naira comprehensive revenue, declares 518 million dividend. Oyo government to deliver circular road in 2027. Court convicts 10 Thai sailors ship, slam $4.3 million fine over 32.9 cocaine trafficking kg of cocaine trafficking. 32.9 kg cocaine trafficking. Wow. Kidnappers seize ransom bearers in Ondo, demand 30 million for APC chair. Two others released. Bauchi government or governor insulted my late father, threatened to slap me. Foreign Affairs Minister saying that. To get details of that story, it's on page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune. Again, PDP, NNPP lose 3 reps to the APC. The APC National Chairman Ganduje witnesses defection. Are we going to are we going to be recording this all the way to 2027? Well, interesting times, right? Now, above the masthead of the Nigeria Tribune newspaper, it says Nigeria's inflation eases by 23.71%. ECOWAS court orders Nigeria to release man detained for 16 years without trial. Absolutely. Elections, reps push for 6 months imprisonment, 100,000 naira fine for non-voting. We have talked about that as well. Well, you could also, for those of you reaching or watching us via our social media channels, you could tell us what you think. The reps is moving for 6 months imprisonment and 100,000 naira fine for citizens who do not vote during elections. What do you think? Well, this is where we draw the curtains on this segment, the News Super Review segment. Remember, the start up with Farida Yaya is coming up next. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be willed by mere declarations, nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite.
This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation.
The welfare of millions of people for generations to come may be affected by the wisdom which we here display. If Nigerian leaders and our British partners are to prove themselves worthy of their trust, now is the time for us solemnly and truly to dedicate ourselves to seeking the greatest good of the greatest number of our people in Nigeria. Independence for Nigeria in 1960 is imperative. But independence for Nigeria as a corporate entity is not enough. The peoples of Nigeria must at the same time be guaranteed their freedom. We must ensure that in an independent Nigeria, individual citizens throughout the land enjoy liberty, human dignity, and equality under the law. There must be one Nigeria with one constitution and one law for all. Let us therefore, Mr. Chairman, sir, close our ears to the counsel of despair, which says that we cannot here at this conference agree on a constitution. If there's any doubt among us as to what should be written into the constitution, let us, as Democrats that we profess ourselves to be, refer such problems, as the GO has done recently, to the people whom we profess to represent, either just before or at the federal elections late in 1959.
Our first efforts at democracy and self-government were abruptly arrested in the mid-60s, largely as a result of the incongenial atmosphere engendered by the uncompromising stance adopted by the political parties of the First Republic. Thus, opportunities were lost for our people to interact and learn to accommodate different points of view for the betterment of the country. We must not allow that episode to repeat itself. The new system that will have adopted presents us with yet another opportunity to achieve national integration, which is a prerequisite for the building of a strong and virile nation.
Oh, great. Hello, good morning viewers, and welcome to the Startup Show. We're very excited to have you today because we are doing something that we believe is very important for not just us but also all the founders and entrepreneurs out there. The Startup Show is a forum to be able to teach, inspire and educate entrepreneurs on how best to build businesses that are not just sustainable but also support national development. My first guest today is Hasana Maina, and she's going to blow us away with her environmentally conscious business. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us.
Thank you for joining us again and welcome to this exciting conversation. My name is Farida Yahya and I'm going to be your host every Friday at 9 a.m. The Startup Show Season 3 is actually powered by the Nigeria Youth Futures Fund. Hi Hassana.
Hi Farida.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell our viewers a bit about yourself.
My name is Hassana Maina. I am an entrepreneur. I would like to call myself a social entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I run a non-profit called Anti-Sexual Violence Lead Support Initiative, that is Aswell Support Initiative, and we work on ending sexual violence. I also run an environmental conscious business. It's a laundry business where you can do self-service or drop-off. It's called Huma Laundry and Linen, but for short we call it Huma Laundromat. Yeah. You know, it's interesting when you say tell me about yourself and then all we talk about is work.
Exactly. So tell us something about yourself that no one would know unless they're watching this show.
I think I really enjoy being alone. I really do enjoy being alone. I remember my late aunt, Hawa Maina, I used to live with her and she would say that she forgets I'm in the house, you know, because I can just be in my room and I'm just alone and, you know, reading a book or just alone.
Interesting. Yeah. So you like your own company?
Yes.
That's actually a good trait to have. Yeah. So tell us about Huma. Why did you decide why a laundry business and why an environmentally conscious laundry business?
I think for me, the first motivation to starting a business was looking at my first passion in life, which is a non-profit. I've always been that person that wanted to help people. I've always been that child that was very passionate about education. So I remember I would gather kids around my area, then in Maiduguri, and I would tell them that they're my students and I would teach them. And I'll go to the neighbors, like their parents, and I'll demand for school fees.
Wow.
And we would do class party, we would do speech and prize giving day, and I would give prizes and I would invite the parents, you know. So in my head I had a school and I had lots of people that indulged me. So I've always been that kind of person that my primary motivation was change and impact. But going for my master's at SOAS University of London and coming back, I've realized that you need money to be able to run passion projects. And then conversations also opened up so much around where Africa is in terms of aid and whether or not aid can actually foster development for Africa. And you know, I started to think, and I started to have, of course I went to school, I was very left, so I started to have very radical ideas around how African problems must be solved with African money. And so when I started Aso Support Initiative, the whole idea is to push for also local philanthropy. How can we get our influential figures? I always used to say, imagine if Dangote gives me ₦1 million to say, go do some work around ending sexual violence in my locality in Kano.
Yes.
That money does more work than actually the amount, you know. The idea that Dangote takes a stance against such social ills like sexual violence has done 70% of the work.
True.
So I always just used to look at it like that. But I also am someone that believe you must lead by example. So I started to think around what is it that I can do to make money. Because I used to tell people when I was in university at ABU's area that I'm actually never that kind of person that, you know, think of plus and minus, profit and loss. But the honest truth is, as long as you're a human being and you live in this world, you must think like that. You must think of profit and loss, you must think of plus and minus, you must think of money. So the idea came for me was, oh, how can I build a business and grow a business and let the business also be able to like contribute to the social work that I do. So even if it's a project, how can this business grow to the extent that it can contribute to like doing certain projects? Because there's some projects that we're very passionate about, you know, at Aso Support Initiative that we don't even have funders for. So how can we how can we also like, you know, do our own? So I think for me, the idea for starting a business is, I keep on mentioning Dangote because he's my capitalist mentor, is to be an Dangote, but to build it side by side. So the Dangote, the brand, and Dangote Foundation, so the humanitarian and the capitalist, how can you build it side by side? So I started to think around, you know, what business is it that I wanted to do? And as a self-proclaimed very lazy girl, I thought of one chore that, you know, that I want it done in a specific way, but also I don't want to do it. So like, you know, when it comes to food, I'm not like, I mean, I cook, but there are restaurants that actually do greater meals than I can ever come up with. So I know where to go to for what. But when it comes to like my clothes, you know, it's like, oh, I want it done in a specific way. So I thought, oh, imagine starting a business that would answer to that need. And like, you know, train staff, like really put in the energy to training staff to actually doing what, like, you know, asking customers, what is it that you want? How do you want your clothes done? What is it, like, you know, and then being able to answer to those needs that, you know, the customers present. So that was part of, you know, what pushed me to say, okay, fine, I really would want to start a laundry business.
It's really interesting that you say that, because I find that a lot of people start businesses like that. They see a need or they see a problem. Most of the time they can identify with that problem and they say, okay, instead of this problem just being my problem, let me find a solution for it and actually make money from it, which is an amazing way to be able to, you know, support the people around you and also the community and still make some money off of it. But you mentioned something very interesting when you were doing your introduction, which is the balance between having a foundation and having a for-profit, right? And that's a conversation I really want us to have today. How do you balance social impact and being a for-profit in Huma?
So I think for me in my life, everything is about impact. So even with Huma, I think around the SDGs. I think there's this funny quote on Instagram and it says, if you want to fall in love, ask yourself, how does this contribute to the SDG? And I'm just saying this to say that whatever it is that I do, I ask myself, how does this contribute to like sustainable development for everyone? So even with Huma, you know, the number one question is, how is this helping our environment? You know, what can we do to ensure that while we meet customers' demand, we're also being environmentally conscious. So I think at the end of the day, it's just like I said, life is all about, you know, plus and minus, profit and losses. So even when I think of like a non-profit, I don't think of it as a loss. I think of it as investment. So I don't necessarily think of, oh, and I think if the world can actually shift towards thinking of non-profits as, oh, it's charity, or no, it's not. You know, you're investing in the future, and sometimes you even start to reap the future of what your investment in is like in 5 years, in like 10 years. You know, so imagine working towards keeping girls in school by eradicating sexual violence in secondary schools. Like in next 10 years, these kids will end up becoming doctors. These girls would end up becoming lawyers. You know, so you have more professionals. So for me, I think and that's why we're very key on advocating for all of these issues. So yes, there's a difference, but when you think around impact, you think around how everything you do should actually foster impact.
Interesting. I think the other thing I wanted to mention quickly before we talk about the challenges, because I know everybody's, you know, excited to hear the challenges that you faced, you know, setting up and having it to keep running and being profitable. But I just wanted to touch on something interesting. I think part of what you provide is also decent work, right? Because I know that in the laundry, you know, sector especially, there's a lot of complaints around people not getting the right wage for the work that they do. How do you think you're able to do that well and actually impact not just the people, but also, of course, their livelihood and also the people that depend on them?
So I think around, so like, the honest truth is I think sometimes Nigerian businesses have a problem with payments, and that's because sometimes as business owners you think of paying people like you're doing them a favor, so you don't necessarily see it as an exchange. And I say this because there are certain times that like some of my staff, that I would pay them salaries and then they would send me thank you, and and like I think after the first month I'm like, no, don't do that, you know. But just to say that when I think of machines in my company, and I think of like the irons, how they need servicing, the gen, you also need to service people. And how you service people is by creating an intentional work culture. So for instance, sometimes people will see maybe on my Instagram that me and my staff have gone out to eat, like, you know, at the laundry we would go to like a decent restaurant and would sit down and would eat and would talk, and it's like, it's sometimes you do all of this for people and then you know they end up leaving or they end up stealing from you, but you're not doing it for them. You know, I think for me my mindset is I'm doing it for the health of the organization, for the health of the company. I'm building a culture to say, of course, if after we have built such structure and you know we've tried to make you to have dignity of self, you decide to act in an undignified way, it's not on us. You know, it means that naturally we have created a system that repels you because you don't belong here. So when it comes to, like, I remember it's a big challenge, especially because you're just starting a business, but I kept telling myself, if I can make provisions to buy machines, if I can make provisions to buy a generator, I must be able to make provisions to be able to pay, you know, what, like, it's all part of the investment. So the first month when I paid them their complete salary, there was like conversation that we were having when we went out to eat, and they were like that they were really shocked that I paid a complete salary because we did not make money to even pay complete salary that month. And to me, I'm like, that's not an excuse, because you raise money to buy the machines, you should be able to raise money to pay people their salaries. So but it's like a lot of mindset shift. When I was doing my master's in England, I've had to work in hotels, and I've seen that it's a work, like, you go there, you do your shift, and there's a dignity attached to it. So sometimes you look at some of this job as, oh, it's a menial job, or so it's not even like even you as the boss, even those that are working for you, you know, sometimes they're just like, oh, I'm just passing time here. You know, there's no dignity attached to certain kinds of like labor, especially in the service industry. so that mindset also creates, it just opens up canker worms of. So I try to just always, I think if you go to a laundry, you would even see some quotes about like dignity of labor, about doing, like putting in honest and hard work and all of that. I grew up with a very traditional father, and traditional in the sense that like he holds on to traditional ethics of honesty, morality, and I try to also live up to that, because I'm my father's daughter.
Definitely, definitely. Well, that's quite interesting. I hope that our viewers are learning so much from everything that you're saying. And I think for me, the key takeaway from what you've said just now is we need to bring back the dignity, or restore the dignity in the service industry. Like you said, just because somebody's working in a laundromat, just because somebody is working in a hotel and they're providing a service for you, it doesn't make them less than. It doesn't mean that you should not treat them with dignity, and it doesn't mean that also there's no value exchange. So they are doing a service, they're being paid for that service. So when they do get paid a salary, it's not something for them to be thankful for. It should be expected. It should be the work culture that you actually pay your staff as at when due, and actually pay them on time and pay them their full salary without giving excuses. If there's a reason for you to punish, a reason for you that you're not able to pay, that communication should happen. Absolutely. So that work culture is what actually helps you thrive in your business. So thank you for sharing that, and I'm sure all of our founders will find that very useful. So let's come to the challenges. And I don't want us to go down a rabbit hole, because when we start talking about challenges, people are like, oh my God, it's a lot. If you can share with me one major challenge that you had having to get the laundromat to be where it is now, and how were you able to surmount that challenge?
Wow. So I think the thing with challenges also is that they intersect in ways, they interconnect, and even when it comes to surmounting them, it's like as you're overcoming one challenge, another one is building. But I think one major challenge that we have is actually the challenge of staff. And that's because you always have to sit back and keep on training and retraining. So you're training staff, and then maybe they leave after 2 months, because like I said, it's always like a transition. It's like, oh, I don't necessarily see myself here. And what's interesting is they'll probably go somewhere else that would not, or maybe somewhere else that would say, oh, we're going to offer you 5,000 naira extra, and then you go there and you stay there for 1 month, and your boss there keeps on reducing your money for flimsy excuses. So at the end of the month, you're getting paid like less than what you would have been paid here. Whereas if you had actually stayed with us, after some time we also review salaries and we add salaries, and we try to provide bonuses and even like rent support. We have all of those agreements, and we have them written and all. I really tried, as a lawyer, I really tried to like structure the business and have those policies in place. Well, because there's also the mindset of, oh, this is just like a transition, and like you said, the way that people don't necessarily like, it's like, oh, I don't see myself here, so I don't, it's not, I don't see myself. But the truth is, you're paying competitive salary with even the government, because like some government agencies don't even pay their staff, as we do. I know that there are some government agencies that are struggling to pay the minimum wage that has been prescribed by the government. But the moment the president declared the minimum wage, we paid even more than the minimum wage, to our staff. So it's like, but then there's this whole, I think also it's around the idea that, oh, I really should not be here, or this is not, I'm just, there's better somewhere. And back to also like the conversation around staff, sometimes I wonder how much benefit Nigeria would have if we have like a vocational school where people are able to get certificates, to be able to operate in certain industries. In the UK, for instance, even for you to plait hair, you have to do some form of training. And the thing about those kinds of training also is that it gives you a bit of, it gives a bit of swag. Like, you feel like, yes, I am a certified blah, blah, blah. So it would restore the dignity in these kinds of labor, one. And secondly, it would mean that people would actually, there will be a more formal structure to things, So that way, if I want to get people to work, I can go to a particular vocational school and get them. So sometimes I really think if we can, invest in training, the right skills, and like getting like a school that would do that, I think that would really help the industry, because it's not just the laundry industry. I'm talking about like the hospitality industry as a whole. And it's a business that seems to be working, because we have hotels opening after every 2 business days. You have restaurants opening after every 2 business days. The agents that we normally use to get jobs, they seem to be profitable, because people are often always looking. So what would we benefit by actually having these people go through some kind of certification and some kinds of training?
Interesting. And I love that you're, ending on that note, because that would lead me to my final question this morning. But I think one of the things that I find really, really interesting, like you said, is that the hospitality industry is booming, right? Especially in Abuja, it continues to grow as a tourist destination. And more people, I mean, we're going now into the summer, a lot of people are coming back home. So yes, there is a need for us to be able to streamline and do it better. I know that we do have the National Board for Technical Education, where, like you said, vocational skills are being people are being trained on vocational skills, and you can actually get certified for it. However, I think one of the things that we seem to have a problem with is that a lot of people just say, oh, I learned from my grandmother, I learned from my sister, I know how to do it. People are not actually very open to actually going to get it. But those things are actually available even in the Nigerian system. So we just need to be able to maybe push people to do it more, and make sure that, okay, if somebody has the certificate and they're working for you, they get even more salary because they have that certificate, and that will encourage more people to be able to go. So let's close on this, Hassana. If there was one thing that you would want, policy makers to look at when it comes to corporate social responsibility and making sure that more stakeholders support the startup ecosystem, what would that be?
I know that what I'm going to say is extremely controversial, because the tax bill has been getting a lot of hate.
Yes.
But as a business owner, the most frustrating thing is any vagabond showing up at your business, and I say this with no apology, saying that they are a member of one agency, one something, and they're asking you for money. And in fact, within an agency, 5 people can come from different departments asking for money for different things. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. Businesses in Nigeria might not be very structured, it might not be, but we must be able to structure, what comes out of it. We can no longer keep on running. Sometimes you even come and you say you want to get money from business. There's like a lack of even empathy as you, as a government employee, you're showing to me as a business owner. This country cannot go anywhere if we don't have support from the private sector and the government. We can't be having this cat and dog relationship. So you, the government, if you're coming, you must ensure that you're providing an enabling environment. And even when you come and you're asking for taxes or whatever, you should be able to, what is it, how much are you making, all of these issues, and afterwards it should be structured. Not everybody should have a right to come into your establishment. I mean, it's harassment at this point. Should have a point to come to your establishment because you have a shop. Everybody just wants to come and get something out of it. It should be for one body. Let us know that, okay, this is where we're paying money to, and this is how we're paying our taxes, and we should get a certificate. And all of these levies and whatever should be structured under one collection point. There should be a one-stop center for all of this, so that you don't empower thugs, to just come and harass people that seemingly seem to be doing well. It's messed up.
Thank you so much, Hassana. I mean, I can hear the frustration in your voice, and I'm sure that a lot of our viewers watching this, who are entrepreneurs, who are founders, can share your frustration. Because again, we don't want multiple taxations. We want to make sure that these taxes that we're paying are actually supporting us, right, to be able to grow our businesses instead of the other way around. Thank you so much,
for having me. Always
for
a
being
pleasure
on the show this morning, and we wish you success in the laundromat. We look forward to seeing more success stories from you, and we cannot wait to have you back soon.
Thank you so much. Anytime.
All right, thank you so much to our viewers for joining us this morning. It has been an exciting conversation with Hassana Maina of Huma Laundromat, and I cannot wait for you to join us next week with a new guest talking about why the startup ecosystem needs support from both the government and the private sector to be able to sustain and continue to build the Nigeria that we want. I remain Farida Yahya, your host for the Startup Show. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend.
Africa stands at the front lines of the climate crisis. Over 600 million Africans still lack access to electricity. 1 in 3 face food insecurity due to climate-induced droughts and floods. By 2050, over 100 million people on the continent could be pushed into extreme poverty because of climate change. Plastic waste is piling. Forests are vanishing. Coastal cities are sinking. Yet, we are not powerless. Africa is also the youngest continent with 60% of its population under 25. We hold the energy, innovation, and drive to reshape the future. From solar-powered villages to bold climate tech, from green entrepreneurs to eco-warriors in slums and cities, the pulse of sustainability is rising. This is Sustainability Pulse with Ebaide, the show where truth meets urgency and action meets hope. Together, we decode the data, amplify the change makers, and reclaim Africa's future. Africa stands at the front lines of the climate crisis. Over 600 million Africans still lack access to electricity. 1 in 3 face food insecurity due to climate-induced droughts and floods. By 2050, over 100 million people on the continent could be pushed into extreme poverty because of climate change. Plastic waste is piling. Forests are vanishing. Coastal cities are sinking. Yet, we are not powerless. Africa is also the youngest continent with 60% of its population under 25. We hold the energy, innovation, and drive to reshape the future. From solar-powered villages to bold climate tech, from green entrepreneurs to eco-warriors in slums and cities, the pulse of sustainability is rising. This is Sustainability Pulse with Ebaide, the show where truth meets urgency and action meets hope. Together, we decode the data, amplify the change makers, and reclaim Africa's future one story at a time. This is not just a show, it is a movement. Welcome to the Pulse. Africa stands at the front lines of the climate crisis. Over 600 million Africans still lack access to electricity. 1 in 3 face food insecurity.
In the heart of our fields lies the future of agriculture, sustainable, innovative, and powered by smart solutions. From the rich soil of Africa to high-tech farms around the globe, agriculture is evolving to meet the demands of tomorrow. At the intersection of tradition and technology, we discover smarter ways to grow more, waste less, and harvest greener. Together, we are cultivating a future where every harvest sustains the earth and its people. Join us 9:30 a.m. Monday to Fridays on Aso TV, channel 392 DSTV, Star Times, channel 127, or YouTube live stream GSA Initiative. Agriculture for today and tomorrow, as we share groundbreaking ideas, empowering farmers, and celebrate greener solutions. Together, let's grow the future. In the heart of our fields lies the future of agriculture, sustainable, innovative, and powered by smart solutions. From the rich soil of Africa to high-tech farms around the globe, agriculture is evolving to meet the demands of tomorrow. At the intersection of tradition and technology, we discover smarter ways to grow more, waste less, and harvest greener. Together, we are cultivating a future where every harvest sustains the earth and its people. Join us 9:30 a.m. Monday to Fridays on Aso TV, channel 392 DSTV, Star Times, channel 127, or YouTube live stream GSA Initiative. Agriculture for today and tomorrow, as we share groundbreaking ideas, empowering farmers, and celebrate greener solutions. Together, let's grow the future. In the heart of our fields lies the future of agriculture, sustainable, innovative, and powered by smart solutions. From the rich soil of Africa to high-tech farms around the